Hello, and I want to welcome you all to another episode of Rambler Reviews. Today we're talking about another masterpiece, and arguably, certainly some people would argue, one of the best albums of all time, and that is Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band, by the Beatles, of course. Now, this is a remarkable album, and a real tricky album to talk about, I'm not going to lie, just because of how weighted of a concept it is, and how special of an album it is. For me, this is the best Beatles album, and the reason behind that is because they really took a step back. At this point, the Beatles had stopped touring. They were done with touring, and they were ready to shed the skin of the old Beatles, essentially. The Beatles that became known as performers. And they wanted to prove to the world that they were real artists. And they gave themselves a lot of freedom on this album. Firstly, with the concept. The concept of this album is that they recorded this album as Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band. Not the Beatles, Sgt. Pepper's. And that's a really interesting concept because it actually gave them freedom to just do whatever they wanted, to get as weird with it as they wanted. And they did get weird with it. And this is such an artistic album as well, in so many ways. Just down to the concept, like I was saying. And this is one of the first few concept albums. I think a lot of people classify it as a second, which is just so interesting because I love a concept album. That's enough about that. Let's get to the review. I'm going to try and talk about every song again, which is going to be tricky, but I'm just going to get through it. We'll wing it. We'll be fine. So the first song, the introduction, Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band, it opens up with like an overture, which is really cool because the kind of concept that they were coming up with this album is that they were making it more of a show, like a more of a performance, like a standalone thing. And that overture kind of sets it up in a real nice way. And obviously, they're kind of introducing it like a live show, like a live set, which is just a really interesting way to start off the album and perfectly for the concept. Because kind of a lot of the parallels to draw on this album is that the Beatles' lives had become a show. They become, performing a dancing monkey in a lot of ways. And they were kind of making a parallel between this and showing that, this is another show, another extension of that. And it's just, it's again with this introduction, it's really showing a departure from the old Beatles, and it merges seamlessly for one of the first times in history into the first song of the album, "A Little Help from My Friends." Now, this is such a beautiful song, like it's such an upbeat, such a lovely song. It's a Ringo track, or shall I say, Billy Shears track, and it's just so sweet. It's written by John Lennon, and the concept of the song is basically talking about, the lust, the need to share love, because all emotions need to be shared. You can't bottle up emotions, and love is one of the emotions that you just need to share with someone, anybody. You just need someone to love. And it's just a sweet little start to a song. I love it. Everyone's got a soft spot for Ringo, and this is a big reason why. Next, we come to the next track, which is, a lot of this, I'm going to say it's a lot on this album, because there's just constantly 360s from song to song. It's just so different, so many contrasts and so many juxtapositions. But we come from that song into the beautiful, bizarre Lucy in the Sky with Diamonds. Now, this song is just, it's right out of John Lennon's crazy imagination, and it's like a little kind of fairy tale, inspired in a lot of ways by Alice in Wonderland and Through the Looking Glass. And you get that feeling straight away with the Lowry organ that Paul plays in the intro, and that's so cool. And it gives you the feeling that you are tumbling down the rabbit hole. And this song's got nothing to do with LSD. I'm just going to say it. If you don't know what that means, there's kind of a rumour that the Lucy in the Sky with Diamonds is, meaning LSD. And this song's about LSD. It's not necessarily. It's probably written by someone who took LSD, let's face it, but it's not really a reference to it necessarily. It's just kind of fun little fairy tale. It's such an interesting song as well. Like the vocal effects on John's voice, it's just so weird and so weird and warped and interesting. The next song we're going to is Getting Better. This is such a chipper, upbeat song, and it's basically about shedding the demons of our past, and about how improvement happens and the beauty of improvement. And the kind of a lot of the parallels that can be drawn in this song is kind of talking about John's violent past, which is quite well documented by this point. He was known to beat women and men, but this kind of song it's talking about moving on from that and shedding that past. And it's not a bad thing to want to move forward. You can improve yourself and you can make changes in your life for the positive. And that's where the whole peace, love kind of hippie movement came from and the importance it had to John. He was completely rejecting the violence of his youth. I mean, I saw an interview when I was doing the research for this, where he was saying that, you know, the line about domestic violence in this song kind of comes from, and the fact that he was so invested in the peace and love movement was just him rejecting, you know, his violent past and his violent nature in the past, which came from his inability to express himself. I think it's a beautiful song, and it always reminds me of, if you've seen that terrible Mike Myers version of Cat in the Hat, there's a really cheesy cover of it. Ugh. But you know, this is solid gold. The next song that comes in is "Fixing the Hole." Now this is, I think, I'm going to say my second favourite song on the album, and it's a Paul gem. It comes in with kind of like a kind of melancholy kind of feeling to it, but the concept for the song is kind of, well, from what I can read from it, it's kind of about meditation and kind of about self-discovery in a lot of ways, because it's about letting your mind wander and finding holes in your consciousness where negativity has been allowed in and fixing them holes. And that's what meditation is all about. It's all about kind of sitting there, allowing your mind to wander, see where it takes you, and if you find any holes on the way, it's all about fixing up their holes and moving on. And that's such an interesting idea for a song. It's also about expressing the development of kind of creativity for Paul. It's a beautiful little song. It's fantastic. There's a lot you can read into this song as well, and for good reason. It's just such an interesting one. And then, like I said, it's just a highlight of this album, as there many are. Now, next we've got a real tearjerker. I mean, really is a tearjerker for I think anyone who's heard this album, and that's "Leaving Home." Now, this tells the story of a young woman who runs away from home, essentially, and you know, it's really, really sad. It's kind of, the emotion in the song is really highlighted by the string section with the sweeping bass and the pizzicato violins, and also the interesting use of call and response in the vocal harmonies, where the kind of John and everyone's kind of doing the parents' reaction to her leaving home, and that is a real tearjerker moment. There's some interesting parallels to draw in this song between kind of, because this album came out in the Summer of Love, essentially, '69, and it kind of represents a lot of this time, because this was all about youth culture rejecting the parents' identity and their parents' lives, you know? This is about people rejecting the living in suburbia and having the nuclear family, and about expressing yourself and expressing love. And I think that's where a lot of the parallels can be drawn on this song. It's all about a rejection of kind of our parents and like the parents' culture at the time, and you know, it's sad, and when the changing of guard happens, it always hurts either party, and you get that a lot in this song. Next, this is again just a 360 from the last song, which is all downbeat and sad and sorrowful. We get kind of the whimsical "For the Benefit of Mr. Kite," which is such an interesting concept for a song. It's basically a readout word for word of a Victorian circus poster, essentially, and that's just such a weird idea, but it's so cool. And apparently John Lennon had this poster hanging above his piano, and that's what inspired it. But it's just such a psychedelic song with like the reversed warping instrumentation that's just all over the place, and it gets all chaotic, and it's all like ooh, mesmerizing and stuff. But it's just an interesting concept for a song, and such a well executed song as well. And it really reminds me, especially when it gets to like the warping kind of crazy bit towards the end, it really reminds me of the scene in Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas, where they're in that casino, the circus casino, and they're high on mescaline, and that just reminds me of that scene, because it's all like chaotic, which is just, it sends you there. It's interesting. The next song is "With and Without You," and now I absolutely love this song. I've got such a soft spot for George Harrison and his writing. I mean, he wrote the majority of my favourite songs by the Beatles, like "Something" and, you know, "While My Guitar Gently Weeps." But for me, this song, it doesn't really, in my opinion, doesn't really belong on this album so much. It just feels a little bit overindulgent in a way. And it's not that I don't love this song, which I do, but I just think for this album, it kind of sticks out a little bit. Personal opinion. But like I say, I love this song, and it's all about self-discovery, this song, and also about how a lot of people will hide behind an illusion that they've created through, you know, materialism or ego or money or power, and how they use these things to create an illusion to hide behind and shy away from the true meaning of life and who they really are. And that's a really interesting concept that comes a lot from, because at this time George had just come back from India and from spending a long time with Ravi Shankar, I believe that's how you pronounce his second name, who, if you've never heard of, go and listen to some of his music and listen to some of his philosophy. He was a sitarist, beautiful musician. He's got a really cool album called Sounds of India, that you should go and check it out. It's fantastic. But and that's the guy who taught George how to play the sitar, if you didn't know. And he spent a lot of time with that and been soaking up loads and loads of Hindu philosophy. And it's all over the song. It's all over it, which is fantastic. It's a beautiful song, but when I say that I don't feel it sits in this album so well, it's just because it kind of stands out for a Beatles song, if you know what I mean. That's all. Next, we've got another 360. We've got 64, which is so sweet. And the reason that it is so sweet is because it's so McCartney. He actually wrote this song apparently when he was 16. And it's such a beautiful little romantic song about the romanticized ideology of growing old with someone you love. And how even the most mundane activities like working the garden or anything just become bliss when you're doing it with someone you love. And this is so sweet. This is a song for everyone. And this is a song that, only Paul would put on an album because it's not trendy. It's not one of them kind of edgy songs. Like you would never see this on like a Rolling Stones album or anyone from that time because it's a Paul song. And that's why I love this. I love this song so much. It's so sweet. It's so beautiful. The kind of, I don't know if it's ironic, but it's certainly misfortunate. The misfortunate thing is that when Paul actually turned 64, he actually divorced from Heather Mills, which is sad, honestly, because it's such a beautiful song. I mean, this is an anthem for so many people, I'm sure. Next, we've got the satirical masterpiece, Rita Meter Maid. This is such a comical little song because this is a love song to a meter maid who gave Paul a ticket outside of Abbey Road Studios when they were recording this album, which is so goofy. It's such a goofy little concept for a song, but it's such a good song at the same time. Like, it's just an example of how the Beatles can take something kind of mundane and make it beautiful and mesmerizing and interesting. And that's just one of the beautiful things about this album, which is all over this album. It's just about the beauty and mundanity. Mundanity. That's definitely not a word, but you know what I mean. Next, we've got Good Morning. Now, this is kind of coming towards the end of the album, and this is an interesting song. It's kind of basically about the boring, mundane nature of average life, and about how people, the majority of people, certainly at that time, I don't know about nowadays, but make the decision yourself, move through life half asleep. Never really living the life to its fullest. And I believe it's kind of, I don't know if Alan Watts said it before, but certainly Alan Watts kind of came up with a quote, stop sleeping through life. And in this song, John's kind of encouraging people to wake up, to liberate themselves, to free themselves from the working life, the working ball and chain, and to live their life that they have been given. And, you can also link it to potentially a link to spiritual clarity, because at the time they were all kind of messing around with different theologies, such as Taoism and Buddhism and Hinduism. But it's probably more likely that it's just, a statement about, the boring nature of working life and how you slave away and work till you die kind of thing, which is sad and unfortunate that so many people do that. And, that's why it's such a special song. Now, next we come to the refrain, which is essentially a reimagining of the Sgt. Pepper track from the beginning. It's kind of reimagined in a really interesting way. It's a bit more fast-paced, a bit more loosey-goosey and relaxed. Also a bit more rock and roll, a little bit more rock and roll. And this is perfect because it kind of is bringing you to the end of the review, the end of the show. If you've ever seen a live performance, you know that by the end it becomes more relaxed. It becomes more kind of, a bit more sway, a bit more fun, a bit more, often more fast-paced, because kind of become more comfortable with the audience and the concept, which is perfect. It's a perfect way to kind of bring this album to an end, and it's kind of a little fun way. And it also seamlessly transitions into, let's just say it, the best song on the album, A Day in the Life. Now, this is a masterpiece for a lot of reasons. First of all, it kind of pioneered a lot of beautifully strange kind of ways of producing music. And also, no song since or before has used an orchestra so well in a popular music song, certainly. They had, I think it was like a 64-piece orchestra, and, they've got the warping, like, reversing instrumentations all over it, and it's just so interesting and so cool. And just, like I said, there's no one used an orchestra in that way since or before, and it's perfect. And also, just the production methods used on it are just so interesting, and would go on to affect, like Jimi Hendrix and all these other artists that come afterwards, in so many ways. Also, the really cool thing about the song is, for as epic of a song as it is, it's kind of about mundane things, It's about reading the newspaper and getting the bus to work. And the reason for that is because they wanted to make a song to show, we are real people. We are the Beatles, but we are also real human beings at the same time. We live the same life as everyone else. We are, in a lot of ways very moderate and just very mundane. And that's, a really interesting concept for the song, because the point they were kind of trying to make on this album, I think, in a lot of ways, was the manic craziness of the life that they'd created as the Beatles and how insane it really was. And the fact that they just wanted to move away from it. They wanted to be deshackled from this life that they were living. That's why they didn't want to tour anymore, because it just becomes so crazy. And, it's a really interesting concept for this album, for this song, and so perfectly executed. Another interesting thing about this song is it actually got banned by the BBC for the lyrics, where the bit where it's like, I want to turn you on. And the reason for that is, it's nothing to do with sexuality or anything, it's to do with a speech by Timothy Leary, where he talks about how hallucinogenic drugs like LSD can be used to turn people on and help them realise their true potential. Which is really funny that the BBC banned it, because by banning it, they kind of prove the point in a lot of ways. So I think that's kind of interesting. But I also love about this song the ending. I mean, everyone loves the ending of this song. It's like doomsday craziness, like swirling manicness, that just like when you listen to the end of this song and this album, it's just like you're coming out of the Matrix or something like that. You've been detached. It's so swirling and crazy and weird, and it just ends with that piano note, and it's just doom, and you just silence the void you have entered. I think it's just so interesting, and you just want to play the album straight away again once you've ended it. And also, it's just the perfect diminuendo for any song ever. And that's the album, as quick as that. So what else can I say about this album? It's a fantastic album. If you've never heard it in its entirety, go and do it. As soon as you finish this video, you won't be disappointed. It's a fantastic album. I love it, and it's been a pleasure talking about it. It really has. I'm going to be back next week with another video. I'm not too sure which one. Song recommendations for this week are Castles Made of Sand by Jimi Hendrix, Keep On Lying by Tame Impala, and Dogs by Pink Floyd. That's it. I'm done. I'm going to bed. Good night. Peace.